Welcome to The Explainer. Our mission is pretty simple. We take complex topics and make them crystal clear.
So let's dive right in. Today we're unpacking the human and environmental geography of Latin America. And we're not just talking about lines on a map. We're talking about how the actual physical landscape, its mountains, its valleys, its massive forests, how all of that truly shapes the day-to-day lives of the millions of people who call it home. So, what's the connection? Well, believe it or not, it's all about geography. It's this kind of invisible force that dictates where cities pop up, what farmers are able to grow, and yep, even the quality of the air. So let's kick things off with a really basic human question. Where do people actually decide to live? All right, so the first chapter in our story is all about people. And there's this huge trend happening all across the continent, a massive rush away from the countryside and straight into the heart of the big, bustling cities.
Okay, so if we zoom in on three of the region's heavy hitters, Mexico, Cuba, and Brazil, you start to see a really clear pattern. Where do you think most people are concentrated?
Yep, for all three, the answer is pretty much the same. Urban areas, the big cities. They're like these giant magnets, just pulling people in from all over. But the really big question is, why?
Well, it really boils down to one simple thing: opportunity. People are on the move, chasing jobs in factories, in industry, in the service sector. And that kind of work, you're pretty much only going to find it in these dense urban centers.
Okay, so people move for jobs, but those jobs don't just appear out of thin air. They're part of a bigger national economy, and that economy is so often shaped by the land itself. So let's shift gears and look at how geography doesn't just decide where people live, but how entire countries make a living.
I mean, check this out. Countries literally play to their natural strengths. Brazil, with its perfect climate and soil, it's the undisputed king of coffee, #1 in the world. Meanwhile, you've got Cuba with all this amazingly fertile land, which allows them to produce huge amounts of sugarcane, coffee, and fruit.
And the secret ingredient here, the magic word, is arable land. It's a fancy term, but it just means land that's good for farming. For a country like Cuba, having a lot of it is the absolute foundation of its entire agricultural economy. It's what gives them something to trade on the world stage.
But here's the thing. Geography isn't always a gift. Sometimes, the very landscape that defines a place becomes its biggest enemy. And there is no better or more intense example of this than the environmental trap that is Mexico City.
Just look at this. The city is literally sitting inside a giant bowl. It's completely surrounded by these towering Sierra Madre Mountains, which basically form a natural trap around the entire metro area.
So what happens when you have millions of cars and countless factories all pumping out exhaust into that bowl every single day? Well, normally, wind would just scatter it all, but not here. Those mountains act like a lid, trapping all those pollutants and creating this thick, hazardous smog that directly causes serious health problems for millions of people.
So the city is fighting back, and they're hitting it from multiple angles. They're pushing for cleaner cars and cleaner fuels, and they've even taken the huge step of moving entire factories outside of the valley, anything to cut the pollution at its source.
So, we've seen a problem that's trapped in a valley. Now let's zoom out, way out, to an environmental issue that affects every single one of us no matter where we live. We're heading south to Brazil, to the Amazon rainforest. Its fate is tied to all of ours. Just try to wrap your head around this number. 20%. The Amazon rainforest, this single place on the map, is responsible for producing a staggering 20% of the world's oxygen. It really truly is the lungs of our planet.
Which begs a pretty big question, right? Why on earth would anyone destroy something so critical for all of us? Well, the main cause is surprisingly specific. And you guessed it, it comes right back to the economy.
The main driver of all this destruction is clearing land for cattle ranching. And this one industry creates this devastating chain reaction. It wipes out countless plant and animal species, and it's a huge contributor to climate change.
So what can you do? Well, the fight is being waged on two critical fronts. First, conservation, a desperate effort to protect the rainforest that's still standing. And second, reforestation, this monumental task of going back in and trying to restore what's already been lost.
And that really gets to the heart of it. From that rush to the cities, to the coffee in our cups, to the very air we breathe, it's obvious that geography isn't just a boring backdrop in Latin America. It's an active, powerful character that's shaping every single part of the story.
So in the end, The land presents both these immense challenges and some incredible opportunities. The critical question for Latin America's future, the thing that will define its next chapter, is how its people will navigate that really delicate balance between human progress and preserving the very environment that sustains them.